at the back end of it, then you will you end up being a little bit more off center. So I'm going to show you chop down. So chop down is me holding, and with the fat part of my hand, I'm going to chop down until I see a mushroom. Once I have my mushroom, I'm going to push in, and I'm not letting the clay go up. I'm pushing it in so that it heads down.
Then you're chopping it down again.
Chopping it down again and pushing in.
Now you putting your hand in the middle of that mushroom, in the middle to let it go down?
No. These trap it on top so it can't go up. And then I'm pushing into this hand so the clay has no other choice but to go down. So there's my mushroom.
Okay.
And I'm going to push in. Okay? And I'll keep going until I get to the wheel head.
And did you just take that off?
This?
That around there, around the bottom.
Yeah, well this, the thing of it is if you start with 5 pounds of clay and you take away, you can't then say I threw a 5-pound bowl, right? Because you've taken away clay. So you want to lose as little as possible. So I'm going to cone up again.
Now you speeding it up.
I'm speeding it up because I need to get this clay to go up. And if I do it slowly, it's not going to want to come. It's kind of like driving a car. You got to know when to speed up and when to slow down. Okay, so you saw me cone up. So usually if I can get students to cone up, then I'm going to arch over and press down. That's the other way to get the clay down to the bottom. Then I go back in. It's at this point that I am worried about being centered. If this dances in any way, let me see if I can push it off so you can see. So it's now moving.
Yeah.
See how it's like doing the hula? That's off center. I can't open the form and make anything if it's off center. It's going to want to thin out to one side. It's going to want to tear. So that's why you got to make sure that it's nice and continuous in its rotation.
So how are you making sure? What are you doing?
What do you mean?
I mean, when you press down, are you just holding it steady? Or?
Yes, I'm holding it firm so that it can't do anything.
And that your elbow, your arm is pressed down.
It's on my thighs and into my sides. And then when I get ready to get centered, I am squeezing. Everything is in like this.
With your core, you're holding yourself steady. Okay, okay.
And you'll see when you get to sit at the wheel, you'll see if you have your hands extended, you're gonna be doing this. You have to tighten your body up.
Oh, it looks centered now.
Yeah, it's ready to go. Next thing I do is I wanna make a hole.
So you're using one thumb
One
to
thumb.
make the hole.
Yes. I always try to show people other options just in case something doesn't work for them. So I use one thumb, and that's typically how I teach. But if you say, well, you know, my thumb's too short, I can't get all the way down there. 2 fingers. I'm going in. My middle finger's doing the work. And I can go down with that middle finger. If I continue to go, I'm going to touch this, which means I have no bottom. So your needle tool is your friend in that capacity, in that you will stick it in, pull it out, and my depth on my bottom is like that.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Okay.
If my depth looks like that, I would say call me over so that I can get some clay to go down to the bottom so you're a little thicker. Otherwise, you have to understand that every time you pull clay up, if this is the piece and I'm pulling my walls up, I am pulling the clay comes from the bottom of the piece. If I continue to pull, I will literally eat away my bottom and not have anything. So at some point you got to know when you have exhausted the clay, the shape is what you want, and leave it alone. So that's me making an opening or making a hole, but I have to open the form. So this hand is here and it's pressing down, not in a hard manner, but it's stiff and the energy is toward this back. This hand is here, but I'm going to raise up. If you look up in your hands doing this, that means that you are watching the wheel spin. Look at this as a clock. 12, 3, 6, and 9. Your hands should be here at 3.
At 3.
If you see yourself at 12, you're watching the wheel spin. If you see yourself down here and you start doing, you over here, and then I see your hands over here, I'm going to come tap you and tell you, focus on your hands. You're watching the wheel spin. So to open, what I'm doing is I am taking my thumb and moving it to this finger. I'm not pulling. I'm just literally squeezing my thumb over to open.
And you're still at 3 o'clock.
I'm still at 3 o'clock, or as close to 3 as I can get. Sometimes,
See, now what are you doing now? After you pull, then you put that hand over there, and what are you doing when you do that?
this,
You put that hand down, and then you were kind of holding it a little bit.
like this.
Yeah.
Because you see how it's doing the hula.
Yeah.
So it's off. That means I've pulled myself off. So I can grab the rim and press in
Oh, that straightens
and
it
get
up.
rid of that.
That's almost like magic.
So I usually compress with my fingers, but I find that so when you compress with your fingers, it's these two fingers. Middle finger does all the work. This is the bodyguard. And I come to the arch and I slowly walk across the street to the center. My rule about compression, same rule about wedging. You do them till you're sick of them, and then you do them some more. So that's a hand compression. Nice and easy, and it should feel like it takes you forever to reach the center. But because I have some seniors who are not able to do that, they will just compress with this. When we're compressing right now, the clay platelets are kind of doing this. When you compress, you are making them align. It's almost like building a bridge. They become structurally sound when you compress. Mm-hmm. So I'm taking my straight edge and I'm just off to one side and gently pressing down. It's not enough to gouge the bottom. I don't want to dig the bottom out. I'm just compressing the bottom so it's nice and even.
Compressing the bottom.
Compressing the bottom. And then I usually will go over it with my finger just to make sure I don't have any air bubbles. Because sometimes you can't feel air bubbles when you're using that tool. Okay? So now I've compressed. I've opened and I've compressed. And so now I want to do my first pull.
Your first pull.
My first pull.
Let me scoot over so you can see some too.
So a first pull, I teach this to students because if you're successful at it and you can master it, it will give you half your height on any form. So instead of showing you just how to pull here, and hopefully you will, with direction, finally figure it out, I show you how to do a first pull so you can get more of your height out of the way.
Now you squirt water on your hand, and then
Yes.
some of it rolls inside.
Yes. And this isn't a full sponge. This is just a little bit. But for the first pull, these fingers are on the inside. This thumb is at the back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze, but I'm not going to continue to squeeze. I'm going to squeeze and then lock the tension in my hands. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm not squeezing. I'm going to squeeze and lock my tension. And then with this, is nice and soaking wet. I'm going to come behind that thumb to keep it moist.
Behind the thumb.
Behind the thumb. And so squeeze, lock in on the tension, push, and lift them at the same time.
So you're not continuing to squeeze. You've locked in. That's
I've
that
locked
lock-in thing. Okay.
Yes. And then as I near my rim, I ease off my pressure.
Ease off.
Okay, so that's a first pull. It's called a first pull because I can't put my hand back in that position anymore.
Because it's too high.
It's too high.
I see.
That's a first pull. For every pull that we do up, we compress our rim down. We do that for every time we pull up. That way at the very end, I don't have to worry about cutting any excess away that's uneven. So now I'm over here at 3 o'clock. I'm going to do a regular pull. There's typically 3 types of pulls that people use. You have finger and sponge. That's when the sponge is wrapped around the finger and it pushes in here. My fingers on the inside push out. So when you think about a pull, my middle finger does the work. These are the bodyguards. This pushes out. This pushes out. Only it has a sponge on it, and we do a pull up. That's one pull. You have a knuckle pull, and it's not the knuckle in the sense that it's talking about this. It's talking about this part of your hand. This goes in and pushes in. Middle finger pushes out. Still does the same work. And then you have thumb over thumb, which is fingertip to fingertip. Push in, push out. My thumb overlaps each other, and I pull. Okay? So I'm going to do one of each one of those so you can see what it looks like. So this is thumb over thumb. I'm going to slow my wheel down because I am doing a pull.
Now, thumb over thumb, you're pushing third finger on the front and on the inside and the outside?
They're just resting. My
They're
middle
just
fingers,
resting.
My middle fingers are doing all the work.
Okay.
As I near the top, I ease off. And it's thumb over thumb because holding my hands in this position gives me a little bit more stability versus doing it like that. Then we have knuckle. I don't want my rim to get too wide, so I'm going to collar in right now. Compress my rim. And then we'll do knuckle. Knuckle is going to be focused on here and my middle finger on the inside. You see how my arms are in near my body. That's to stabilize me. Push in, push out, and start to lift up.
Just making it taller.
Yes. And I'm not squeezing the clay up. I am pulling and stretching out clay particles. And then my third is going to be finger and sponge. Sometimes you will hear me tell you to make a groove with your finger at the base of your piece. And I'll ask you to do a pull. If you do a pull and that line is still there, that means you haven't applied enough pressure to move the clay and stretch it up.
Okay.
Same thing, same rules apply. Finger on the inside is doing the work. It's got 2 little bodyguards. And finger and sponge, I push in, push out.
And then loosen up at the top.
Ease off your tension at the top. Collar your form in.
What do you call that? Collar?
Collar.
Collar it. Okay.
Because if you allow this to get so wide, and you don't need it to be that wide, by the time it gets out to here and you try to bring it back, it's going to start to buckle on you. So you do it every time you see a little flare, you just collar it right back in. So now I'm looking and checking just my depth to see what this looks like. So I've got enough where I can do one more pull because I've got some clay at the bottom that's just sitting there. And I'll start to slow my wheel down. Taller you get away from the wheel, the more centrifugal force happens. So you want to make sure you don't lose your piece.
Now you're collaring it in.
Yes. That's okay. Clay does have a memory. So you see how I just hit that rim?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to remember that. Even if I straighten it out, it's going to remember it. And so usually, if you're not that concerned, I just get rid of it.
Let's see if it remembers that.
Oh, that's gone. Okay. So with my wooden stick, because I'm making a cylinder, this is the first shape that you will learn how to throw, because this shape makes every other shape. This shape can be used for a bowl. That just means I have a wide cylinder. If I use it for a platter, that just means a low and shallow cylinder. This is the shape for everything. So this is the one you got to know. And once you get comfortable with this, then it's making bowls, making cups, pulling handles, making plates and things like that. So I want to make sure that, I guess I can't, I'm not going to take, usually I would run this tool just by turning it like this, and where it lands, it's going to take away everything I don't need. But instead of doing that, I'm going to bring it out just a little bit, and I'm going to cut away just a little bit of this, because when I show you guys how to trim, I'll need something to cut away from.
Oh, that was just so cool.
So you cut that away. And you want to make sure that your form is nice and level. This tool allows you to do that. So I'm going to go above this area right here, but I'm going to push my cylinder into that tool because I want to make sure everything's nice and flush.
So where are you pushing on the inside? Are you pushing with one finger?
I'm pushing with all three of these fingers to cover this surface area.
Oh, okay, I see.
To get this guy nice and even. Most people typically want to run this tool this way, but it's beveled for a reason. The beveled edge is for you to hug the side of the profile, not to necessarily feed it like this. You can, but it's just as quick to do the side, and you won't get any drag on the tool and on the clay. I need to get that water out while it's still spinning. So I just press down toward that inside to get the clay out.
The water.
Yeah. You don't want to leave water on the inside of your pieces. What ends up happening is the longer it sits, that water will actually eat through your piece. So when you go to pick it up, you won't have a bottom. And I run it up the side to get rid of any sludge. Hit my rim. Hit my outside.
Now, Miranda, we know this ain't as easy as you making it look.
I know. I know. And then, so because we don't have a lot of bats, you want to make sure that your work is taken off the bat and put on a board. We try to save the bats for work that is like maybe you doing a platter, maybe you do a large bowl, you can't really pick it up, then you want to leave that on a bat. But things that can be picked up, we transfer to a board just so that we have the bats for use. So this is my wire tool. And when I cut this off, I'm not going to be all the way out here. I want to make sure that I wrap and thumb on top, and I'm going to just make sure that I am close to my, yes, I'm cutting away from the bottom, but I want to make sure that I'm close to it so I don't have to worry about this kicking up. Usually when you're cutting off a tool, you saw me take this wooden stick and run that tip up underneath there, that gives me kind of a guideline versus not doing it. Because then that way, if I'm talking to you and someone else says something and I turn my head, I can still make that cut. That guide is going to catch it. Most times when people are talking, it's what? And they end up cutting into the bottom of their piece. So you want to make sure that you take care of that.
And I saw you run it through twice, so you should
Yes.
run it through twice.
Yes, I typically will do it twice, and if the piece is still stuck there, then I will, I'll put a little bit of water so that it slides right off. And then this hand upside down, this one right side up, pick up, and move on to a board so somebody else can use the bat. Or I can continue to throw on that bat. Okay?